joining us here. We now want to shift our focus to the other big story that we want to track this evening. Come the 1st of December, and India will take over the presidency as far as the G20 is concerned. India will be taking over the G20 presidency from Indonesia. The Prime Minister will be landing shortly in Bali, Indonesia. Before departing for Bali, the Prime Minister said India's impending presidency of the grouping will be based on the theme of Vasudhaiv Kutumba, or One Earth, One Family, One Future. For India, the presidency though comes at a challenging time. During the Prime Minister's 3-day visit, several bilateral meets with G20 leaders have also been lined up, and he will also have an event with the Indian community. The Prime Minister will also participate in key sessions around food and energy security, digital transformation and health. The Prime Minister will also join other leaders from around the globe in discussing several issues, including the state of the global economy, issues relating to energy, environment, agriculture, health and digital transformation. Before I bring in my colleague Abhishek, who's been tracking all these developments for us from Bali, I want to quickly first talk to you about what does the presidency mean for India. It will position India as a driving force of unity. It will also showcase India's stability during an economic crisis. More importantly, it will also solidify India's position as a mediator with the world powers. It's also an opportunity for India to take the lead in tackling issues like the climate change crisis. India can also act as a bridge between superpowers and the developing nations. Let's quickly also now talk to you about as far as what's on the agenda once the Prime Minister does land in Bali. Energy crisis and the impact on global food security due to the war. There'll be a focus on digital transformation and environment sustainability. Women as drivers of economic recovery and resilience during the COVID-19 pandemic. The sovereign debt vulnerabilities in developing economies. The impact of COVID-19 on sustainable development goals. So as we pointed out, you will have the Prime Minister who will be landing in Bali shortly. And this is a big moment as far as India is concerned, because we will be taking the presidency of the G20 from Indonesia. Let me bring in my colleague Abhishek, who's been tracking all these developments for us, joining us now from Bali, Indonesia. Abhishek, you've been tracking all these developments for us. How soon before the Prime Minister does land there?
It's a matter of few minutes when Prime Minister Modi will be landing in Bali. The information that we have, his scheduled arrival time was 10 p.m. Bali local standard time, which is currently is 2 minutes short of that. So most likely Prime Minister will be arriving here soon, and tonight in Bali there is no.
But tomorrow morning he's going to have a very packed schedule. He's going to meet bilaterally several leaders. He's also going to have one Indian community event where we'll be addressing Indian diaspora and talking about India and Indonesia's connect. Walking around Indonesia, you will find a lot of cultural similarities between southern India and this Indonesian part of Bali. Bali is also predominantly Hindu, majority-based island of Indonesia. So there is a lot of cultural heritage and traditional connect that one can find between India and Indonesia. Prime Minister is going to obviously underline those indicators, those factors, and how this can actually help, bring India and Indonesia more closer to each other.
Abhishek, now let's talk to you about what is the opportunity that India has when it takes over the presidency. More importantly, what are we expecting in the days to come as far as bilaterals are concerned?
So Prime Minister is going to have several bilaterals. One of them is with the host country's leader, President Joe Wyden of Indonesia. Then, of course, he's going to have bilaterals with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. His bilateral with Singapore Prime Minister and Spanish Prime Minister Pedro is also scheduled. There are talks that he may likely meet the new Prime Minister of Britain, Rishi Sunak, but that is yet not officially confirmed. It's officially confirmed. Meeting is with the French President Emmanuel Macron. There has been indications from the US side that President Biden is also eager to meet Prime Minister Modi during his visit to Bali on G20 summit level talks. But we'll have to wait for that official confirmation, because there has not been any word from Indian side yet on this. There is going to be many other full-aside meetings also, which is not scheduled because of the tight schedule of all the leaders. But they will try to find windows of opportunity where they can meet and sit and chat together, and in a way can further their bilateral ties and their bilateral agendas. Also, India is going to have presidency from 1st of December this year. So G20 will be in India, and what could be the agenda that India will be highlighting? Prime Minister can actually made a blueprint for that what awaits G20 in India in the last 2 decades of G20's conception as a leader summit. There has been multiple challenges that have been thrown on the world stage, including the recent years of pandemic that we have seen how it has impacted globally in terms of economic, people-to-people exchange, education. Not a single sector, social, economical, political, was untouched with this COVID pandemic. So also, he's going to talk about sustainable development goals,
Okay.
climate change, how the world can come together and collectively work in order to have a common prosperity while maintaining the climate scenario of the world.
Okay. Abhishek, I'll just request you to stay on with us. We'll continue to come back to you. I want to bring in our guests as well. We have former diplomat, Ambassador Anil Trigunath. We also have former diplomat and MEA spokesperson, Ambassador Vishnu Prakash. And we also have senior fellow ORF, Sushant Sareen. Good to have all of you on the broadcast with us. Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, I'd like to begin the conversation with you first. How do you see this, the timing of when G20 is happening at a time when India takes over the presidency, and more importantly, how do you see this as an opportunity for India going forward?
Greetings. It is indeed a great opportunity for India because we have the ability today to walk the talk. We have a lot of things, achievements to accredit, be it climate in the field of climate change, digitization, health, renewable energy, and so on. It has been an article of faith with India for the last 50 years to reach out to fellow developing countries. Also the challenges, but more than that has the ability to articulate the challenges, to take an independent viewpoint and to safeguard its national interests. So there is a position that India has. The only challenge at the moment is that the world is very divided. There is hardly any agreement on key vital issues. On all the issues that I mentioned, there is very little agreement, and the West is changing the agenda in that there is more emphasis on hotspots like Russia than on developmental needs and economic issues, which is the main focus of G20. So the work is cut out for India, but India has the ability to steer it through and provide leadership. It is a great opportunity for India.
Okay, great opportunity for India. Ambassador Trigunath, I want to bring you in. Just want to set the tone for the discussion. When you take over the presidency from Indonesia, how do you see as the most important theme? Because when Indonesia had the presidency, their theme was, let's recover together, we recover faster. Of course, that was in the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic. So two events that are going to shape discussions around the G20 is, of course, economies coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, trying to strengthen themselves, and of course, in the backdrop of the Russia-Ukraine war.
Well, thank you. And as Ambassador Vishnu Prakash has already outlined many of the issues that are there, as far as India is concerned, it'll be a continuation and expansion of what has already been discussed in the previous two, or rather the current one and the previous Italian presidency, 3 I's. During the Italian presidency, the theme was planet, people, and prosperity. As far as Indonesia is concerned, it is recover together and recover is stronger. And where India is concerned, it is definitely just one of the greatest themes, and that is part of its foreign policy and the day-to-day dispensation of India's behavior internationally is Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. The world is one family, whether we call it one earth, one family, or one future. So therefore, these encompass all the major dimensions But all of these also underline the fact that there are tremendous global challenges at the moment for which solution is very difficult to find as long as the current Eurasian war continues. I understand that there are some discussions taking place in Turkey with their help between Russia and the US. I also understand that Chinese and the President Biden have met, and there are discussions exactly how to do it. India has also been asked to play a greater role, and we have spoken. Prime Minister Modi has spoken to President Putin and urging him that the era of war is over. And what we feel that India is going to focus mainly on developmental issues. It will continue to become a voice of the developing world, irrespective of the fact that the way the Western countries are behaving at the COP27 or elsewhere. So climate change will remain, SDGs will remain a major agenda item. And of course, digital transformation, the health for all. I mean, all those developmental issues are continuing and will continue to remain a major aspect of India's presidency. And India, of course, wishes to play a role of an honest interlocutor for dialogue, diplomacy, and peace. So those are the essential agendas that will be there. And of course, out of these 200 meetings that are being planned across 55 cities in India,
the most looked at bilaterals was what happened earlier in the day. That was United States and China. This was the first time that you had both the leaders, the superpowers, actually meeting after a period of almost two and a half years. How did you see that bilateral, the body language, the first handshake, and then what we heard as far as the short statement was concerned?
I personally, whatever I saw of the handshakes, I got the feeling that the Chinese looked a lot more self-assured, and perhaps President Biden looked a little out of sorts. The fact that he seemed to be very eager to shake Xi Jinping's hand. Now, okay, the Chinese have very impassive faces, but even otherwise, when one side is grinning too much and the other side has this impassive face, I don't think, you get the right vibes. So one was that. The second is, I think, from whatever has come out so far, there are very nice words being said that, both China and the US need to re-engage, etc., etc. But I think both sides are discovering, at least the Americans have woken up to the fact that their biggest strategic challenge and threat comes from the Chinese. Not just in the realm of overtaking the US, but also in terms of global security and the kind of threats which the Chinese are posing to countries in the region and the kind of assertion that the Chinese are doing. So there is an inherent conflict in that relationship which is now coming to the fore. The Americans should have woken up to this maybe 2 decades back. And maybe it might just be a little late in the day, but even if they wake up right now, it's fine. But if the Americans are going to finally realize that there isn't a lot they can do about it, maybe they can stall, the Chinese thing, but their own economic welfare depends upon China now.
True.
Then I suppose, the world will take a turn in a different direction.
The reason that I asked you, Sushant, this was also the timing of when both these leaders were coming together. Of course, for Xi Jinping, having another term as president, the kind of boost that, even President Joe Wyden has seen as far as the midterm elections are concerned. Is it now both leaders, both countries coming together, wanting to be seen as equals? Is that the message that is being sent out when both these leaders shake hands?
Do the Americans really want the Chinese to be their equals? I think that's the question to be asked. When you are the sole superpower, and I think the Americans probably still are in many ways, then you don't want a country like China, which is trying to displace you and replace you, to be an equal partner. Because that then means that you go back to that old silly formulation of G2. Which for us at least is unacceptable. Sure. I agree with that.
Sure.
But I think it is important that rather than, trying to spread ourselves too thin by bringing in all sorts of extraneous issues into G20, we should go back to the basics. What was the G20 formed for? It was the group of the 20 most powerful. We can try and put in the frameworks, we can try and put in the SOPs to stabilize the world economy and take it in a particular direction, in a forward direction. I think we would have done, justice to our presidency. Otherwise, we'll be saying highfalutin stuff all the time, but with very little to show for it by the time December 2023 comes.
Okay, I'll come back to that, and I also want to quickly talk about how far India has come. But I believe, Ambassador Prakash, you wanted to come in. I believe you wanted to make a point on US and China, I believe.
Yes, I do. I broadly agree with Sushant Sareen. If you look at the body language, President Biden approaches President Xi with the outstretched hand for 4 meters. So this is something that is going to be played out again and again. But look at the comments that were made in the before the meeting, where President Xi Jinping said, "We need to find the right direction." Translation: please get your ways right. But more than that, he says, a statesman should think about and know where to lead his country. He should also think about and know how to get along with other countries and the wider world. I mean, this is very, very patronizing. The way it has been structured with China playing hardball, and it has been reported that even the format of the meeting could not be agreed to, and the discussions went late into the night. So you have literally a situation where you have the Chinese president who has been anointed the president for life, and you have the American president who has just escaped being a lame duck. And the kind of differences that are there between the two, China believing that it is a rising power and the US is a fading power. So where all that you can do is to have somehow manage the relationship and bring down the temperature. I do not see much of a meeting of ground, because China is out to reduce the technological gap. The military modernization is at a fast pace, and it wants to be a bigger power, bigger economy by 2049. So US cannot afford to have a friendly relationship with China, because you have to take on China. You have to confront China, not play ball with China.
True. And I also want to discuss, but I understand with the point that you're making. I quickly want to bring in my colleague Abhishek also. Abhishek, how is the bilateral between United States and China being seen on the ground?
Okay, so it was one of the most awaited bilaterals, because of the clear reason that over the last 2.5 years, ever since he's become president of USA, Joe Biden and Chinese president, they have never had any meeting. COVID was one of the reasons, but there was obviously other reasons also which did not allow both the leaders to share a table. So this time, this is one of the highest point of G20. Of course, there will be a joint communique, but before the meeting starts from tomorrow onwards, this was one of the biggest meetings that was awaited, because this is also going to set the agenda as to how the balance of power in terms of strategic balance or economic balance is going to be. We have seen Russia-Ukraine war having all impact on every aspect of our life, geopolitical turmoil. We have seen disruption in supply chains of food, fertilizer, fuel prices going up, and all these are impacting world economies at large as well. So by this current crisis that world is witnessing, the larger goals of climate change, sustainable development goal, common prosperity, everything takes a backseat. So how to take all those things forward will also depend on how the balance of power or the rules-based order that United States always talks about continues to maintain at a status quo.
Absolutely. Abhishek, I'll just request you to stay on with us. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank all our guests. We're still awaiting to get some pictures from Bali of the Prime Minister actually arriving. We leave the conversation there with our guests. We're slipping into a very short break. We're coming back with lots more.